Gary Williams here. Some friends of mine are making a difference in the community, and one of the ways they're doing that is helping to sponsor this podcast. Petroselli Homes Realty Group is a boutique brokerage service located in downtown Niles. They offer a personal and intentional touch to the home buying and selling market. They take the time to learn each client's story, much like this podcast, because to them, the first step in linking buyers to the home of their dreams starts with understanding and a great deal of trust. John and Jennifer Petroselli have had the honor of helping countless buyers and sellers make effective real estate decisions to plant their roots, raise their families, expand their wealth, or simply relax and retire. So if what I've described is what you might be looking for in a realtor, I suggest getting in touch with Petroselli Homes on Niles Boulevard in downtown Niles. Now, coming to you straight from Fremont, California, this is the Fremont Podcast, dedicated to telling the stories of the past and present of the people and places of the city of Fremont, one conversation at a time. Now, here's your host, Ricky B.
Hello, Fremont. You're listening to episode number 28 of the Fremont Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, for sharing the content that we put out. Thank you for being an active part in our community. I know that you have demonstrated your love for Fremont and your love for the content that we're doing. To me and to others that I am connected with here at the Fremont Podcast. And I want to make an opportunity available to you that will help us out as well. We have launched a new Patreon account, and that Patreon account allows you to subscribe and to become official patrons of the Fremont Podcast. There are perks involved. There's extra content that you can access. There are other perks, in-town perks, that will be available to you as you become a member of the different tiers. And then we also have an opportunity, if you are interested in becoming a significant sponsor or a significant patron of the Fremont Podcast, we have an opportunity for you to sign up, have your name recognized as a patron of the Fremont Podcast, as well as small businesses. If you are a small business owner, you would like to be recognized and have your business identified in the community with the Fremont Podcast, then you have an opportunity there to support us, and we in turn will support you through the podcast. So check that out. Go to the Fremont Podcast Instagram account. You can find the link there in the bio, and then sign up to be a patron of the Fremont Podcast. Well, today's conversation, I'm really excited about a new brick and mortar bookshop is coming to Fremont. It's opening this week with the grand opening, and I am just so excited that I got the opportunity to talk with Amy, the owner of the bookshop, about her story, about the bookshop, and her love for books. And so here is my conversation with the owner of Banter Bookshop. Well, I am excited to be with our guest today. We are actually sitting in a brand new brick and mortar bookstore in downtown Fremont. And I think I can say this is the first time I have done an interview in a place that I guess we could refer to as downtown Fremont.
Yes,
because they've been working on this the Capitol is it Avenue or Street for a while.
Capitol Avenue. Yeah, it's been a while. I think this building has been here for at least a couple years.
Wow.
Prior to the pandemic.
Right.
And there is one other retailer that is open, and they're doing fantastic. Raw ASF, which is right next door to us.
Yeah. I see life over there. So
yes,
that's good.
Exciting.
There's people ordering lunch and eating out there.
It's delicious.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. This is Banter Bookshop. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Banter Bookshop. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, get to know you. Tell me, give me your name and when did you move to Fremont, or when did Fremont become your home?
All right. Well, my name is Amy Holmes Davis. I have grown up in the Bay Area. I lived in Hercules until I went off to college, and I went to UC San Diego, and that is where I met my husband, Paul. And Paul and I, when we graduated back in 1998, we wanted to get back up to the Bay Area because he's from Lafayette. And we found ourselves, we got married shortly thereafter graduating.
Okay.
And we both landed in jobs for about a year in Palo Alto.
Okay.
And we decided Fremont was a really good place, centrally located, close to our parents, also close to work. I had plans to go to law school, and
Okay.
I went to, after about a year, I went to law school at UC Hastings and lived in Fremont while my husband continued working in Palo Alto. And then when I graduated from law school, he went to school up at UC Hastings.
Wow.
And my law firm job was over across the bridge again, over in Palo Alto. And it just always made sense. My cousins grew up here in Fremont in the Glenmore neighborhood.
Yep.
And so that is actually where I live now.
Okay,
And
okay.
we lived in a couple different spots in Fremont, and in 2007, moved to the Glenmore neighborhood and been there ever since.
Wow.
And love that.
That's
So-
awesome. Do you have a special place that you like to go to now in Fremont, now that you've lived here for a little while? Is there a special restaurant or a hangout spot that you enjoy?
Well, let's see, with so many special memories. Love going to Lake Elizabeth, walking around Lake Elizabeth.
Yep.
Coyote Hills, that I
Yep.
have very special memories at, with like running with my friends, but then also going with my family.
Yeah.
Don Edwards, love Niles.
Yep.
Used to go out to Devout, like on Mother's Day for a few years there. We'd always go there. And then my neighborhood in Glenmore, very special memories there. Been involved with the swim team and
Wow.
their 4th of July little parade.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
all kinds of.
So
great
how many
memories there.
how many years have you lived here in Fremont now then?
So we've been in the area since 1998.
Okay.
And so I feel like I've spent my entire adult life here, like literally. I mean,
That's awesome.
got married, lived in Fremont, and never left.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
really have enjoyed it.
Yeah, so you went to school, law school,
Mm-hmm.
and you worked for a law firm. And was that your career up until now, starting the bookstore, or is there something else that
There's
you
something
did?
else in between that.
Okay.
So I practiced for about 5 years, and then when I have 2 daughters, they're teenagers now. When the second one was on the way, I decided I wanted to be home with her.
Okay.
Both of them,
Yeah,
both
yeah.
my girls. And so I did have been a stay-at-home parent for almost 15 years now.
Wow.
And during that time, I got very involved in the community. Was on the swim team board for about 7 years. I was on PTA at Glenmore Elementary for, I think it was 8. Been involved with the school site council at Centerville. Just been involved in the community in a volunteer capacity, and really just love interacting with people and serving them and being part of this wonderful community. I've met a lot of great people.
That's awesome. Wow. I love it. I love it when people who have been invested in the community through volunteering and so many other ways, that they just decide to settle in and to make roots right here in the community, and be able to have a presence here, a permanent presence in the community. And I think this is great. So, in some sense, it's almost like this trajectory, this culmination of what you've already been doing all these years, and now you have your own place. Yeah. So, this is
it's
great.
a bit of a dream come true. My friends and family have heard me talk about this bookstore idea for a really long time, like probably 5 or 6 years.
Wow!
And it kind of started off like, oh, well, that's cute, Amy. Or like, I don't think anyone, including myself, I didn't know I was really going to pursue it.
Wow.
And as time went on and I thought about the next phase of my life as our family is getting older, and I wanted to get back to something.
Yeah.
And I thought about going back to law or pursuing this dream. And I just thought, truly the pandemic, one of the things during the pandemic, I decided, I had a moment where I'm like, I don't want to go back to being a lawyer. I did love it when I did it. I was did employment law management side, and I love the HR aspect and counseling employees about treating their employees well, and I did enjoy it. But that dynamic where I was working has changed, and the same people aren't there. So much time has gone by, as well as I think my nature is better suited for something else.
Yeah.
And a few years back, a friend of mine started a neighborhood book club. And she's like, would you want to help me with it? I'm like, oh, sure. And then before you know it, I was like all about the logistics of the book club.
Wow.
And I'm like, it was very clear that I was nerding out on the whole thing. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this.
Yeah.
And I just decided to go for it. There's a company that helps people open up independent bookstores.
Okay.
And I started doing some of their training materials and talking with them. And I guess it actually was pre-pandemic that I got that far.
Okay.
I started working on it. I actually called the city of Fremont, I think early March 2020. And it's like, is anyone? I always said if Fremont had an independent, like a general interest independent bookstore, that I would, wonderful. I would be their biggest customer and I'll let somebody else do it. And I called and they're like, no one's got that in the works right now that we're aware of, and then the world kind of slowed down there for a while, and I put it on the back burner. And then in December of 2020, I decided to kind of pursue it a little bit more, incorporated the name. And last May I started looking for spots.
Wow.
So it's been in the works for a while.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so I've got a question about, like, you said that you were helping with like the neighborhood book sale or whatever that you were involved with.
Oh,
Is that
the
right?
book club.
The book club.
And then I did scholastic book fairs at the elementary school. That was fun.
Okay.
But that, it's 4 days once
do
a
you
year.
Do you have a bookstore that you have visited in the past, or maybe even that you frequented, that you look at and say, I love this. I would love for, it kind of became like the seed thought for your bookstore. Do you have a brick and mortar store that you?
Yes. Several. I love Rakestraw Books out in Danville.
Okay.
I make a point to go out there. I love them. They're, yes, Michael, who owns that store, is wonderful, and I hope to become a part of our community like he has become a part of the Danville community. I don't get to go there as often, but there's a couple bookstores up in Healdsburg that I make a point to on the square. There's two, I think it's Levin and Company, as well as Copperfield's. And then I listen to some book podcasts that are with stores in other parts of the country that I haven't had the pleasure of going to, but I love what they're doing.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
And then you kind of got to whet your appetite with the book club and the scholastic book sales.
Yes,
and stuff.
Over the years.
That's awesome.
I love seeing kids get excited about books. I love talking about books.
Yeah. I know it's a sad thing for me. Like when I see brick and mortar stores close down, like I have bookstores that I've been to. I actually, to be honest with you, I remember having a dream, because I love coffee and I love books, and I love the community that kind of like congregates in bookstores together.
Right.
And it's not necessarily always a place where people have conversations. It kind of seems oftentimes to be more of like a quiet environment where people can sit alone and, enjoy reading. But I had a vision of having like a more of a community-based used bookstore that was also a coffee shop and that sort of thing. And I had a friend of mine years ago that I know had one of almost exactly what I envisioned. It was called The Silver Chair, based off of C.S. Lewis's book, The Silver Chair.
That's awesome.
And it was very, very cool. So I love seeing this, and I'm glad to see a brick and mortar bookstore rise up instead of closing down.
Yes,
I think
it's been exciting. I think there's been a lot of enthusiasm because people, I think, have missed browsing and missed just being able to wander in and kind of see what's out there. And, I hope we become like part of somebody's family's little tradition. Like once a month we go to the bookstore.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy kids books as gifts for birthday parties or something,
Well, my son loves to read. He's 9 years old, and we just like we were able to go to Ireland back in November, and he bought a copy of The Hobbit, and then he ended up reading that before Christmas, and then he's read 4 of the Harry Potters since then, and then he's just on the last Return to the King, Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
So he's read through almost through the entire trilogy. But I was just envisioning when I got here, I mean, I live like a mile away from here, and I just envisioned, when he becomes, young enough to still enjoy it, but old enough to be responsible. I'd love for him to say, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to ride down to Banter Books and look around." Just being a place that he could come down here and
come and check out.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Has he tried Land of Stories?
No.
Or The School for Good and Evil? Those are 2.
We've got to try those.
Yeah.
Those are great recommendations. So I want to know where the name Banter Bookshop came from. So I love it. I think it's cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
But so where did that name come from?
Well, I like the alliteration of it.
Yes, of course.
Banter Bookshop,
of course.
that works.
Yeah.
I do love to talk.
Banter a little bit.
Yeah. But I also think that I think it's so important for people to read, but I also think it's really important for people to talk about what they're reading.
Yeah.
And then sometimes people don't always agree if they liked or did not like a book.
Yeah.
And just kind of like the friendly exchange of information about talking about books and bantering back and forth.
That's awesome.
And it just all kind of came together.
At what point in the process did that name come into play? Like when your friends who've been listening to you talk about this for years, did it come then, or was it like within the last couple of years, or?
It came a couple years ago. I had a little running list in my phone and in my notes app with all these different names, and nothing was feeling right.
Yeah.
It's really hard to be clever about this.
Yeah.
And a couple years back, I started a little Instagram account, a Bookstagram account.
Okay.
And all the cute names seemed to be taken. And I'm like, I don't know. And I came up with Books plus Banter.
Okay.
And this Instagram account is very small and it's, tiny. I was just kind of playing around because I didn't understand Instagram.
Sure.
I didn't understand it. But I kept hearing about Bookstagram, and I was like, I guess if I'm going to pursue this bookstore thing one day, I better figure at least that out.
Yeah.
And so when I had that little handle, I was like, maybe Banter, that Banter is good.
Yeah.
And then paired it with Bookshop. And I liked Bookshop because it felt like a little smaller, and more community based. And so,
when I was putting notes down in, I think it was either my phone or my schedule or whatever, and I started putting down Banter Book, and I was like, is it shop or store? And I was like, I hope it's shop. And I checked, and I was like, it is shop.
No, I think it will be an ongoing thing, and either way is fine. However you like to say it is fine.
So I'm looking around here, and I'm looking at some of the titles. Now, we're sitting in the kids section or a young adult section right now. I've got kid novels behind me and middle grade school, family favorites over here, and then a lot of other. The store has a lot of other categories here. How did you choose which books to have in the inventory? Because you're certainly obviously not as big as something you would find on Amazon, and I think that's always one of the biggest competitors for any retail location is an online store like Amazon and so on. It's not even Barnes and Noble is almost not even a competitor as much as Amazon is, right? But then to have a space this size and be limited to the number of books that you have, how did you go about choosing the inventory that you have for this shop?
Well, it was a bit of a team effort. I worked with the bookstore consulting company, Paz & Associates, and they have a consultant named Susan Savory who helps me out. There's databases and analytics about what's selling nationwide, but also they take into account the size of your community, your demographics, and a lot of different data points. And I received spreadsheets, and then I went through those spreadsheets and narrowed it down, added in what I wanted, what titles that were important to me. And the beauty of the book industry has become quite sophisticated.
Sure.
And we can get practically anything within a couple days, a few days from our distributor. And
That's great.
so even once we roll out our new website, people will be able to search for something. If they don't see that's in store, we can get it for them.
That's great.
So it may not be quite as fast as our friends.
Yeah, right. Right. Our friends literally down the road.
Yeah. Our friends, driving around trucks all over the city.
Yes.
But we can get things in the store. And it was a really fun process, and it was really fun to pack them, and they will just keep coming.
That's
right?
great. That's great. Do you have like a kind of like a nutshell, I don't want to say an argument, but at least a thought about somebody who might be interested in just reading on a Kindle or reading on something that's electronic versus like an actual paper book? Like when you think about that, like if somebody says, well, I just, I don't know, I'm thinking about just getting it on my Kindle or a paperback book. I mean, obviously, I think there's a lot of options when it comes to electronic books, but what is your thought about actually having a paper copy of the book that you're reading versus electronic?
For me, it's almost nostalgic back to your childhood of reading a book, and I've always find that reading has brought me like great peace, and my energy like relaxes in having that book in my hand. However, I used to read on my Kindle. I loved a Kindle. It was fun, and mesmerized by that technology. One of the big things I missed was seeing the covers. Remembering the story, because I used to, hardbacks or paperbacks, you have that book. And then I'm quite sentimental. If I really enjoyed a story, I want to see it on my shelf.
Yes.
And hang on to it.
Yeah.
Also making, little notes or flagging things in books. One thing that did get me to a few years back, I kind of put my Kindle aside when I got this awesome book light that
very cool.
Like I finally found a book light that I liked, that it charges on a USB and it lasts forever, and it wasn't disruptive if you're trying to read next to somebody else who's trying to go to rest, to sleep. And so that was really fun to be like, oh my gosh, I can go back to like all my books, because that is where my heart is.
That's awesome. So just a couple more questions, because I'm loving this. So as you are considered, when people come into the shop, and like you have a vision for what you want them to experience, like what you hope. As you've planned out the space, what is it that you are really excited about people experiencing that might be more unique to your shop, maybe than just any random bookstore? Like, what is it that you have envisioned in this shop that will stand out?
Well, I hope they feel welcome to engage or not to engage. If they want to quietly browse, that's absolutely fine. I think back to the number of times I've been in bookstores and where I'm like, I just go in. I'm not really talking to anybody. I'm just kind of doing my thing. Yeah. And so whatever suits someone, if they would love to chat, I've hired several people who I believe are very friendly folks that will engage if someone wants to chat or needs some help finding a book. But also, hopefully, like they can come in, they can get what they're looking for, or we can quickly get it for them, and then also discover something new that they weren't expecting.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Well, I'm excited. We are right now recording this conversation on June 6th. So it's June 6th. When is the big opening day? Because I'm going to be posting this before your grand opening to hopefully get people out here.
Wonderful.
But so what is the big day?
The big ribbon cutting is going to be June 21st at 4:00.
Okay.
And you got to come on down, come check it out. And after that day, we will be open what I anticipating our regular hours, and that's going to be 10. Do you want me to do the hours?
Yes, please. Okay. Yeah. Give us the regular hours.
It'll be 10 to 6 Monday through Thursday.
Okay.
10 to 9 on Friday and Saturday, and 11 to 5 on Sundays. And hopefully, there's food trucks down at the downtown event center, which I'm thrilled to be part of this new downtown and this new environment. Food trucks every Friday, I think through October, or maybe at least the beginning of October. So the Friday nights, I'm thinking, hey.
And you said the hours for being open on Friday nights are 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
That's great.
So I'm hoping to, that was the things that when I have vague memories of years ago when we had, a couple big bookstores here. First wandering around the store with my husband after dinner, and then later on, with my kids when they were super little, and then they disappeared. But so I'm hoping, people have those same little, outings with their families and or, come on by if you're next door or walking from Pete's Coffee up the road over to the hub,
That's great.
We're
so
right center of town.
We're going to wrap it up, but I want to ask you before we go, do you have a favorite book right now? And I know that changes for a lot of people. They're like, I read this and it was my favorite, but then I read this and it's not my favorite. So do you have a favorite book right now?
Right now, I haven't finished it yet, but I'm reading Bomb Shelter by Mary Laura Philpott, and it's a memoir. It's fantastic. I don't know if I'm connecting with it so much that we're very similarly situated. She is teenagers and seems to be about the same age, and some of the stories that she's sharing are really resonating with me. I also have one more. I just finished Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel, which was excellent. It's a little bit of oh my gosh, I'm going to blank out for a second here. She wrote Station 11. And so it's a little bit of science fiction, a little bit of time travel, which I normally am not enthralled with that genre, but what she has to say about, the future is very interesting. And also how humanity wins the day. And so there's
awesome.
A couple I'm currently enjoying.
That's great. I will ask one more question because I normally ask this one at the end of a lot of discussions, and that is, if you were to look ahead 5 years from now or 7 years from now, and you would be able to see your shop and what your shop has become in the community, what would you hope? What would be a success for you by having the shop in the community?
Oh my gosh. I think a success for me would be pop into people's heads if they needed a book or if they needed a gift. And knowing, and hopefully maybe they've attended an event here or they have fond memories of being with their family or their significant other in our space and just becoming a part of the Fremont community.
That's great. I think I was going to say this before when you mentioned it, but I think that the word banter takes reading to another level, and it involves the community, involves another person, and I think that's really cool. I love the fact that you've initiated that idea when it comes to reading. It's more than just reading, that it's about engaging with somebody else about what you're reading and involving other people in that. I think that's great.
I always like to talk about what I'm reading. And so if someone else has read the same book, and even if it's just, sometimes the entire plot will blow out of my mind and I'll just remember one little snippet, and to be able to connect with the other person about that, it really builds connections, and you don't have to remember every little detail. And I'm hoping once we get settled to have some book clubs, and I have fond memories of being in a little parent-child book club with my kids, and how fun it was to watch the younger ones engage and talk about books too. So hoping to somehow work that in, maybe a middle grade book club or something. We've got to work out the logistics of those things.
That's great.
As well as for adults.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for allowing me to have a sneak peek of the shop before it opens, and I wish you all the best. Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for wanting to chat with me. I loved it. Well, it's been great. I look forward to being a regular customer of yours. Thank you so much, Ricky. Looking forward to seeing you here. Thanks. You've been listening to the Fremont Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever it is that you listen so you don't miss an episode. And if you're so inclined, leave a kind review so that others can find the podcast. To stay connected with us, you can find links to our social media and other content at thefremontpodcast.com. This episode was hosted, edited, and produced by Ricky B. Music provided through soundstripe.com.
I'm Gary Williams. Join us next week on the Fremont Podcast.
Muggins Media.